In front of you is one of the most ever conducted twisted science experiments. This chimpanzee and baby boy raced each other, both as siblings, and it was completely documented for you to see. But before I explain how absurd this is, experiment revealed that you must. Dr. Winthrop Kellogg, the mastermind psychologist who finds wild children fascinating. People who were raised inhumanely are no longer in the wilderness on their own, or even perhaps raised by wild creatures, so he wondered what might occur if it were to. However, if a young animal from the wild was raised in a similar manner to humans. In fact, babies are being raised. Winthrop was so curious he went as far as he experimented on his own kid 10. Donald, a month old. Although he had no idea that he was making this sacrifice, just doing would soon turn into a huge. He brought a regret into his family at initially. Gua, a 7-month-old chimpanzee, was his pet. All to be brought up to be like humans. For the upcoming 3 days, Donald's actual sister. Months Gua and Donald were always. They shared the same outfits. Ate played with the same meal at the same time. Slept in the same kind of bed as toys. Each day, they underwent a series of experiments to determine how various their responses would. Several were benign experiments, but others were quite vicious, tickling their excessive head banging by bodies with a spoon, just to make sure that different binding structures between them. Moreover, there was just one experiment. A can was fired directly behind the two, simply to see who can respond more swiftly. Soon Winthrop began to experience the solutions he had been seeking for 6 months. Qua entered the test and started to replicate the gait of others. She had a more. She mastered opening doors with an upright posture. Doors quickly, she learned how to use switches. Regulated light bulbs for the electric. I would get dressed and go to the bathroom without their parents' assistance. That this was the turning point. Winthrop started to act weirder and uncertainties as a result of Goa's development. Donald's shortcomings. They were curious about Goa's behavior. Would alter having a human parent-infant. But they failed to consider Donald's being reared with would alter behavior. A beast before they even realized it. Donald began to imitate Goa's gait and, due to Goa's refusal to speak, Donald couldn't since she dominated them. Instructor for the boy who failed to learn. Lieu of learning words, make sounds like. He would snarl and yell while biting an animal. Every time he was angry at his parents. Prior to 3 more months later, Winthrop ultimately understood that the experiment was. Goa was brought to a zoo to be worth it. Whenever she could, with her true family. Fast enough to readapt, but it wasn't as simple as Donald found growing up. Numerous traumas, yet unlike Gua, he never received. To combat the negative impacts of the trial. Bringing us to an intriguing conclusion. That we may use the human brain as most effective weapon simultaneously. Also be our frailty with our passing, we are far more prone to have trauma for the entirety of our life, and that is. Why does it matter how we raise a child's ability to define their entire life? As it is obvious that none of this would have. Donald would never have experienced what he did if it. This one choice, which his own father made. Who was so enthralled that it made him blind. He took science too far, endangering his own child.